It was a calm afternoon flight from New York to Seattle. Flight 227 had just leveled off at 38,000 feet. The seatbelt signs turned off, passengers stretched, and the faint hum of jet engines filled the cabin. Everything was perfectly normal. Captain Daniel Morris, a man with 25 years of spotless service, glanced at the digital display, then took a slow sip of his coffee. The weather ahead was clear, fuel levels perfect, and the air traffic routes smooth. Flight attendants made their rounds, passengers chatted softly, and the sun bathed the clouds below in a warm, golden hue. Nothing could possibly go wrong. Or so everyone thought, but sometimes fate changes course midair. Without warning, Daniel's hand trembled slightly as he reached for the throttle. He blinked, trying to focus, but his vision blurred. "Captain, you okay?" asked First Officer Grant, glancing over. Daniel opened his mouth to respond, but gasped instead, clutching his chest. His eyes widened. Then he slumped forward onto the controls. Alarms screamed. The plane dipped violently to the left, and within seconds, it was in a steep dive. Passengers screamed. Coffee cups flew. Oxygen masks dropped from the ceiling. "Mayday! Mayday!" Grant's voice cracked over the radio. "Flight 227 declaring emergency. Captain is unconscious. We are losing altitude." On the ground, the Denver ATC tower jumped into action. Controllers scrambled to guide the plane back up, but the descent was too fast. The Rocky Mountains loomed ahead on the radar like sharp teeth. Grant tried everything, pulling the yoke, adjusting thrust, but panic blurred his judgment. He was alone in the sky, 38,000 feet up, and losing control fast. And then, out of nowhere, someone opened the cockpit door. Grant spun around. A woman stepped inside. Calm, composed. Her presence somehow cut inside the cockpit. Emily worked with machine-like precision. Every movement was calculated. Every command executed with the calm confidence of someone who had lived through storms far worse than this one. "Autopilot engaged," she said firmly. "Cabin pressure stable. We've got 30 minutes to Denver if we divert." First Officer Grant could barely process what was happening. He kept glancing from the unconscious captain to the mysterious woman beside him. He finally spoke, his voice shaking. "Emily, we saw the wreckage. The Navy said you didn't make it." She glanced at him briefly, eyes cold but haunted. "Yeah," she said, "that's what they wanted you to believe." Grant's heart pounded. This wasn't possible. He remembered attending her memorial, how her name had been carved into the Air Force Wall of Heroes. But here she was, flesh and blood, guiding a 90-ton airliner like it was second nature. The radio crackled suddenly. "Flight 227, we see your altitude stabilizing," said a controller. "Who's flying the aircraft now?" Grant hesitated, looking at her. But Emily leaned forward and pressed the comm switch. Her voice was steady. "This is Captain Rhodes, requesting medical emergency clearance to Denver." Silence filled the radio for 3 long seconds. Then chaos erupted on the other end. "Captain Rhodes, confirm identity. You were declared—" Emily cut them off sharply. "No time for that. Passenger lives come first. Clear me a runway." The tone of authority in her voice left no room for argument. Within moments, the Denver ATC scrambled into emergency mode, rerouting all air traffic to make way for Flight 227. Down below, emergency crews lined up the runways. Fire trucks, ambulances, and even military vehicles were on standby. The name Captain Rhodes had triggered every red flag in federal channels. Up in the air, Emily's hands moved fluidly across the controls. She guided the plane through a corridor of clouds, adjusting course as lightning flickered in the distance. Grant finally found the courage to ask, "Where have you been all these years?" Emily didn't answer right away. She stared straight ahead, lost in thought. "Let's just say," she murmured, "when you discover something you weren't supposed to, people make sure you disappear." Grant frowned. "You're saying your crash wasn't an accident?" Her silence said more than words ever could. As the aircraft approached Denver airspace, the control tower's frequency was jammed with chatter. Air Force officials had already been alerted. Fighter jets were being prepared, though no one could agree on what to do. If this truly was Captain Emily Rhodes, she had secrets the government buried years ago. "Denver Tower, this is Flight 227, Emily called out. "Requesting emergency landing clearance. Medical emergency on board." "Copy that, Flight 227, replied the controller. "Runway 16L cleared for immediate approach. Emergency teams standing by." The city lights shimmered below as the massive jet descended through the night clouds. Passengers, unaware of the mystery unfolding up front, prayed quietly as the seatbelt signs flickered. Inside the cockpit, the tension was thick. "Flaps 30, Emily commanded. "Flaps 30, Grant confirmed. "Landing gear down." "Gear down and locked." The runway lights appeared, long, bright, welcoming. Emily's hands stayed steady. At 145 knots, the wheels kissed the tarmac. Reverse thrusters engaged, the aircraft slowed, and the cabin erupted in applause and tears. Passengers cheered, unaware that the pilot who had saved them wasn't even on the manifest. For the first time in 7 years, Captain Emily Rhodes had returned from the dead and landed safely. The chaos. She wore a light brown pilot's jacket, her hair tied back neatly, and on her chest an old worn pilot's badge that no one had seen before. "Who the hell?" Grant stammered. "Passengers aren't allowed in here." But the woman didn't answer. She moved with authority, gripping the controls. With one smooth motion, she pulled the aircraft out of its deadly nosedive. The engines roared back to life, and the altitude began to stabilize. "Get him some oxygen," she ordered, her voice steady, eyes locked on the horizon. Grant obeyed automatically, still shaking. He turned back, placed a mask on Daniel, then faced her again. That's when he saw her face clearly and froze. You can't be real," he whispered. "You're supposed to be dead." The woman didn't flinch. "Not anymore," she replied coldly, adjusting the throttle. The plane leveled off. The alarms quieted. Silence filled the cockpit, except for the steady breathing of a woman the world had forgotten.